thanks for stopping by Laurenceville Garage today. If you are a current subscriber or have watched other videos that I've got out and are following along with the 91 Chevy shop truck that we're building, the low buck project, thanks for stopping in again. Thanks for subscribing. If you've never seen one of my videos before and this is the first time, welcome. I hope you learned something new. Let's get into it. What are these brake parts for? Okay, that's a good question. The shop truck's a 91, and the 88 to 91s, the standard cab models, had smaller brakes. They had a 1-inch thick rotor, whereas the remainder of the models had a 1.25 inch thick rotor. After 91, all the trucks, the half-ton series, got the 1 1/4 inch rotor. So if you've ever shopped, if you have an 88 to 91 and if you've ever shopped for drop spindles or rotors or calipers, you're going to find there are multiple choices. And the reason for that is because of the different size of the brakes because of the spindle. So I've got the spindle that has the smaller brakes. Let's upgrade to factory larger brake. So I needed a new spindle because this part is referred to as a spud. The spud is longer, which makes sense, for a 1.25 inch thick rotor than a 1-inch rotor. So we needed new spindles. And I found a place, Salvage yard not too far from me, that had a really good, the guy gave me a really good price. And I got there and it was a yard that you don't pick your own stuff, their guys do it. So when he went to pick up my spindles, they pulled the whole unit. They pulled the rotors, calipers, spindles, and even the hose brake lines. I got everything. 35 bucks each. So it's 70 total for the pair, which was, at least around here, is a really good price. Anyway, this is one broken completely down. This is the other one that hasn't been touched. The parts about this that are really usable, the calipers are good. I'm going to rebuild those. The rotors, however, have got a lot of wear, and there's a rather heavy ridge where the pad wear is. And I've got a pair of rotors from the blue 95 that you might have seen in some other videos. When I built the front end on that truck, I lowered it. I used all DJM products, lowering control arms. So I kept all the stock stuff and just stashed it aside. I don't really throw much of anything away. You never know when you might need it. And this is a case where I could use the rotors. And my rotors, my 95s are in much better condition. The only difference really between the 95 rotors and the 92 are really the 95 rotors and the 88 to 94 is the reluctor wheel on the back. And I can show you what that looks like real quick. On the back of the rotor, you can see this gear. That's called the reluctor wheel. That's for the ABS. The 88 to 94s didn't have that. Otherwise, the rotor is basically the same. They use the same bearings. Between the two, I've got a full set of Timken bearings that look really good. We're going to go with those so I don't have to replace the bearings. But the hardware kit for the calipers, all the rubber parts, and this kit contains all the parts you need, all the rubber parts you need for the caliper, for 2 calipers at AutoZone, was about $9. And then there's a kit for the piston for the caliper that includes a seal and this little O-ring goes on the inside of the caliper to seal it. And it's about $5 a piece. So those are relatively inexpensive. The pads on my 95 are actually in really good shape, so we're going to continue to use those. The rotors for the 95 that we're going to use are in great shape. I do believe I'm probably going to go ahead and take them to a local store and have them turned. Price has gone up a little bit since the last time I had that done, but we can get the rotors turned for $20 a piece. And with all the parts included here, let's see, 20, 40, for about 65 bucks, we should be able to rebuild everything. And that includes a new a quick bleeder, which I believe is the Dorman name for a speed bleeder. We're going to put new bleeders in, rebuild these calipers completely. We're going to clean the parts up well and it'll be a good chance to use the media blaster that we just built and modified, so it'll be a good test to clean all this up and make it look like new. Let's start taking these parts and getting them cleaned up and see what they look like. And here we go after the bee blaster and a once over, getting the grease off. Everything's nice and clean. Looks pretty good. Overall, it's turned out well. This is just a shot of the parts from the first spindle that I took apart, and I refinished everything, painted the dust shield black, and then painted the caliper, spindle, and rotor cast iron gray. Still need to have the rotor turned, and the new parts are not out here. These are the older parts. Okay, here's the second rotor I just took apart. The spindle, dust shield, rotor caliper, and all the parts. Pretty rough shape. Again, this rotor I'm not going to use because if you get down right on it, you can see there's a lip on that, and it's just not as good a rotor as I've already got. So now we got to just clean all this up, detail it, and put it all together. Okay, I may have turned the camera on just a moment late, but we packed the rear bearing with grease and put the seal in place, as you can see, and trying to be careful not to get grease on the actual surface that's been ground away. I'd like to make a shout out to my friend Christopher at O'Reilly's here in Rockwall. He is the manager over there, and when I took my rotors to have them turned on the second rotor, his machine broke, and rather than giving me a song and dance about why he couldn't do the second rotor, he gave me a new rotor. This is not it, it's going to be on the other side, but I just wanted to give a little shout out to him because he helped me out when he could have taken a different path. Okay, moving along. Now we're going to work on the caliper. Here's the piston, and it's got a ring that goes just on the inside. There's a groove, if you can see, just inside there, and that's where that ring goes. And then when we put the seal on, we'll put it on the piston first, seat the piston, and then make sure this goes in the right place. And we're going to use a little brake lubricant. I'm going to use a little lubricant. The ring fits in there very nicely. And the piston, you want to be sure when you insert it, if you didn't pay attention when you took it out, that the flat side goes inside. If you don't, you're going to have big problems. This kind of stretches onto it. Goes on pretty easily since there's some grease on it. Then you insert the piston. Just the way I said. And I put it on backwards, but I'm glad somebody's paying attention. See if I've got something I can use. Okay. Took a little more leverage than I was able to provide with my hands. That goes right in place. And that seats properly. You can see how the edge of that has to seat. If it's already on the piston, makes it a lot easier. Now we're going to do the slide pins. And on the slide pins, see if I can show this to you. Here are the parts that go inside. And it should look like there's 4 kind of flattened rings, 2 that are seals on the inside, and these 2 are on the outside, and these are larger because that's where the bolts go through. These rings, you want to lube them up on the inside. See it. On the inside, there's a groove right on the inside, about 1/3 of an inch. That's where one of them seats. And on the inside edge, you can see it, it's right inside here. You want to make those rings, make sure those rings make it into those grooves. All 4 are the same size. But lubing them up makes them easier to get in, and they're already lubricated so that when you put the slide pin in, that it will slide in. Because to get the originals out takes a little, like a pick. Okay, we've got new slide pins. I was going to clean them up, but on this particular wheel, the old ones were so corroded, there was no getting around them, being able to use them. So the slide pins, take the gloves off. Okay, now these pins, these seals go on the ends, on the inside. Hard to do with gloves on. It's a messy job, but when you wear gloves, it just makes everything really slick. Put them in on the small side first, and we'll put a little bit of lube on the outside of this. So if you get these little packets of lube, they're good for maybe 1 caliper. There we go. Okay, it's in on one side. That's how it should look right here. It's coming out the other side perfect. Takes a liberal amount of grease to get it all together. All right, the guide pins are in. Thing looks good. We've got a Dorman quick bleeder. We're going to use that as our bleeder screw. In the future, we needed a new one anyway. It is an 11 millimeter. I'm not going to go in all the way with it because we'll be taking it out when we bleed it. We'll be putting new banjo bolts in with our new hoses. Okay, pads are in. Spindle and put the dust shield on. The dust shield is installed. Now we'll put the rotor in place. And I've installed the bushing in the back and put the new seal in already. Put this in place. I'm not going to make this too tight because I'm probably going to have to adjust it once I put it in the truck to adjust the preload. It's kind of hard to do when it's not on a vehicle. Just cut a pin. Got a new dust cap as well. I'm going to tap it on just a little bit because I don't want any dirt and crap getting inside there until I get ready to take it apart to adjust that. Yeah, we can get the caliper in place. I put a little anti-seize on the bolts here so that they won't be a problem sticking in the future. I would suggest when you buy some lubricant to install this with, that you go ahead and spend $6 or $7 for a 4-ounce tube instead of $1.69 for 0.4 ounces, which is barely enough to get you through one caliper. So do yourself a favor, get a little extra lube to begin with. I've also decided that when we install this on the truck, I'm gonna go ahead and install brand new brake pads, because as much trouble as you go through to do this, those pads, they look good, but who knows? We replaced everything else, might as well replace the brake pads as well. So here it is. Here's the finished rotor caliper spindle. Looks like new. And then there were two. During a quick break, we put together the second one, and now they're ready to go. The difference in the look is because this one gets the new rotor that O'Reilly's provided, and this part hasn't been painted, but in reality, when the wheel's mounted, you're not going to see this anyway. So everything looks great, ready to go. I'll see you in the next phase of the project.